Welcome to another episode of the Empowered Half Hour. I always say I'm excited to share today's guest, but I'm really excited to share today's guest. I have with me on the podcast LinkedIn extraordinaire Xhoni Mimillari, and I know that I am not giving the right accent to the last name, but if you could go ahead and say hello to the audience with a little formal introduction of your name, that would be awesome.
Hi everyone, it's Xhoni Mimillari. It's not much American. Yeah. Come on.
Thank you. And I'm so excited to have you on today's show. So, this is how I found Johnny. And I don't even know if you know this background, but he does know that I work for Cisco because that's kind of how I introduced myself to him. But I was in my pursuit of going back to Cisco and really taking on this role of solution evangelism for the product that I represent, which is Cisco SD-WAN. And
Mm.
I really wanted our team to start leveraging LinkedIn more. So I went and I did a Google search for like top 10, I think I used that word like cool LinkedIn influencers. And that's how I found you. Your name came up. And then I
Yeah,
started
great.
following you and I engaged with him and said, hey, we might have a need for a speaker, which I still haven't been able to secure yet, but that's a different story. But then I really started following Johnny's work. And I do love the way that you share how to grow your audience with LinkedIn in a very like organic, authentic way that does end up converting into sales, right? Because at the end of the day, that's what people want. But that's how I found you. And I'm so
Mm.
glad that you're in my network now and that you're here on the show. So welcome officially.
Thank you so much. I didn't know that story. The fact that you shared it here live makes it even better.
Yeah, I love sharing stories. It's like my thing. But I would like to take an opportunity before we go into the questions just to read your bio. So that way the listeners have a little bit more background. So, Johnny has been helping people win clients on LinkedIn for over 4 years, and it is his superpower. He focuses on marketing psychology and content strategy. And we're going to talk a little bit more about it on the show because I know it's going to come up. But he just dropped this awesome LinkedIn course that has the marketing psychology like front and center. So I can't personally
Mm.
wait to dive into that. But over the last 2 years, he has been transitioning to creating online trainings, like we were just talking about, that focus on psychology in the background. So it creates winning social media posts. So, Johnny, tell me, how did you get here? How did you become a LinkedIn extraordinaire, teacher, trainer, etc.?
So I think the first was the love for psychology and marketing psychology and really what drives behavior through content. With LinkedIn specifically was mainly the opportunity of finding people who actually were potential clients. And when I got into LinkedIn, it was like the good times where the reach was great. Still, it's pretty good. But the idea of finding people who actually are serious and actually quality type of leads, that was the idea about LinkedIn and how easy it is to find clients that got me into that. But how I got here was really the curiosity to be like, all right, how do I craft content that attracts people? What is that thing? Is that a feeling? Is that a thought? Is that an internal dialogue that goes in the prospect's mind that inspires them to take an action and do something? What is that thing? So my curiosity got me to really study psychology and understand very well what makes people do stuff and buy products, right? And yeah, it's pretty interesting the psychology behind that because it's complicated, but it's also simple at the same time, which is very strange when you hear that.
Yeah, I would love to ask another question on that is what does drive someone to engage with you on LinkedIn specifically? I mean, you're talking about psychology and I'm sure there might be more than one answer to that, but if you could summarize like some of your highest learnings and what you're bringing forward, I'd
Sure.
love to hear it.
100%. I think the level of internal confidence that they have that you have what they need right now. So if a prospect internally goes, this person might be the ideal person or they have the ideal solution for me to get to where I want to be, that will increase that internal level of confidence, just that internal dialogue that, hey, this person might have exactly what I need, right? The internal confidence goes up very, very quickly that this person might hire you if that goes on in their mind, if that internal dialogue takes place. So they've got to be confident that you have what they need. They've got to be confident that they're going to get there the way they want to get there. That's something that many marketers miss. People want to solve their problem, but they want to solve it the way they want it to be solved, right? So they want to get their own way. So if they internalize that you have the solution to the problem and the way they're going to get there is the same way that you're going to help them, and it's kind of very similar, the approach, the values, what you stand for, and how you approach things and they resonate with that, then that's
Hmm.
the chance of them getting in touch. It's pretty high just based on that.
I love that you shared that the way they get there needs to be kind of in their own hands. Because
Yeah.
I find a lot with thought leaders, and on LinkedIn, we have a lot of thought leaders, a lot of influencers.
Mm,
And I find that some of them are very prescriptive, but they're also maybe overly prescriptive.
mm,
And when you said that, I kind of even like moved back in my chair a little bit because I was like, wow, once you step into this world of promoting an online business or author,
mm,
speaker, thought leader, you have to figure out how to communicate your message in a way that lands with the audience. And in
mm,
that, in the background, when we're doing like our trainings and we're learning all this stuff, it is told to us to kind of form a prescriptive, I don't know what I want to say, like a prescriptive message or a prescriptive way of doing
mm.
things. But as a career sales professional of 20 years in Fortune 500 sales and
Yeah.
sales leadership, I found that the solution, like how you get there, has always been better when that's defined by you and the person together. So I would love for you to talk a little
Mm.
bit more about that if you don't mind.
Yeah, as you were saying that, something came to my mind that leadership and content strategy have something in common, which is you've got to have people get to their own conclusions about the things that you want them to. Same with leadership, kind of, same with content. So, with
Yes.
content, when you put something out there, you've got to get clear on what conclusion, what emotional reaction do they need to have about your content, or what conclusions do they need to make about you for them to end up reaching out. And you've got to say things where you drive them to that conclusion or they actually get to that conclusion by themselves. It's not like you push them to get there. Because many content creators, they post content that are kind of pushing, even indirectly sometimes, they're pushing the audience to believe
Yes.
something. Instead of saying things that will drive them to that conclusion, but they go there to that conclusion. You don't need to say it, right? You just say things, say facts, you say them in a low pressure way where they get it themselves. And that's a superpower because you can influence people so much easier, in a much easier way, when you drive them to their conclusion, but they get there by themselves instead of pushing them there.
I
Right.
absolutely love that because depending on what your business is, but almost every
Yeah.
business offers some form of transformation, regardless of whether it's a face cream or for me, I have a message that I feel is important. But at the end
Yeah.
of the day, everybody kind of offers a transformation. And it's really how you get transformation is really from believing it in yourself.
Yep.
And anyway, so I just love that you're saying that because I think so many people that, and especially my listenership too, are entrepreneurs, are thought
Mm.
leaders, authors, speakers, corporate leaders. And it's just a really good reinforced message. So thank you for going down that rabbit hole with me. All right. So, what I'd like to ask you next, Johnny, is what did you have to overcome to be seen as a LinkedIn expert? I mean, that's a pretty prestigious honor to be featured in articles and things like that and seen as a go to expert. What did you have to personally overcome to get to the position you are today?
Rejection, fear of other people's opinions, a lot, especially in the beginning. Before I got into entrepreneurship, the fear of actually appearing not the way I should to other people around me. I was really afraid to get into entrepreneurship in the first place because I had a job as a sales consultant. I quit that to start entrepreneurship. It was the hardest decision because my family didn't want me to. Previous to that, I had dropped out of college and then I quit football, which was my dream. So it was a constant strain of hard decisions I had to make during that period. And the hardest part to get to this point was really looking long term in terms of what is going to benefit me and my clients the most. And I feel like being patient in waiting because it's easy. Because, like, when I got into this 3, 4 years ago, it was very easy to actually go for the 6, 7 figures. And I was really had to stop myself. I first need to have a great product. That was the hardest thing,
Sure.
like patient. Before I get there, because many people get there fast, they ruin their reputation and you cannot get it back. Because if you don't have a good product and you let a lot of people know that you don't have a good product, you're not doing yourself a favor there, even though in the short term it's good.
Hmm.
But the hardest part was definitely that looking at how can I do the right thing now, even though it's very hard to actually do it. How can I work on the product? How can I make the right decision so 3 years from now I can benefit from that? And sometimes it's very hard to look at what is going to be the best decision 3 years from now instead of 2 months from now. I mean, entrepreneurs who are probably watching this, they're thinking like 2, 3 months from now, and they should be thinking 3 years from now. That is the hardest part because how do you do that? How do you wait that much when there is so much uncertainty, when you don't know what is going to happen? That's how you got to start thinking. Like 2, 3 years from now, what are my goals? What do I want to achieve 3 years from now? How do I make the right decision now, even if it's not going to benefit me at all? Do that, no matter how hard it is. Yeah.
I really like that too because so much of what you said is just true. And I know a lot of people that are out there with good ideas who I'm a big proponent of creating the work life you love. For some people, that's full blown entrepreneurship. For some
Yeah.
people, it's a hybrid of working full time and having a
Mhm.
side hustle. Or for other people, it's just working, doing a typical career. But at the end of the day, either way, I feel that a lot of people struggle with reaching their
Mm,
potential, going for that risk of their
yeah.
dream because they are fearing the rejection, they're fearing the planning. And it keeps them, like you said, kind of in this smaller window of 2 to 3
Mm,
months or 6 months from now instead
yeah.
of going into that bigger picture. So, what advice would you have for listeners that are considering their next, again, regardless what that is? What advice would you have for them?
Get clear on who do you need to become to easily achieve that goal that you have. Who do you need to become? What character traits do you need to develop? What beliefs do you need to start getting clear on
Okay.
or developing? And what habits? And I think what's more important is also skill sets. So it's character traits, skill sets, and beliefs. There is that person already. You can think that there is you now and the future self who will easily crush it. Who is that person? What are the character traits there? What are the beliefs? What are the habits, the skills? Get clear on that and start becoming that person. Show up like that person. You cannot achieve something that is greater than you by being who you are. You've got to become somebody else. And I know that can be contradicting because people say, be who you are, be yourself. And sometimes that can come across as a different message. You've got to be yourself. But to get to the next level, you've got to be also somebody else at the same time. You know,
Yes,
if you make
I
sense?
love that. And I just want to do a quick twist on that too,
Sure.
because how could someone take that concept and start applying it to LinkedIn and how they're showing up? And even maybe
Mm,
if they're not ready to drop a product, how can they start
yeah.
elevating who they are on LinkedIn?
They can start getting clear on what do they need or what do they want to be known for and start owning the
Ooh,
space.
that is like a mic drop question right there.
What is the thing? Like, if you don't have clarity on that, you're going to post stuff that it's not related to the main thing. Once you know, all right, this is what I want to be known for, then everything else gets much more clear as you go in terms of what content you're going to post, what your messaging is going to be, who you need to help or who you're going to help, what the product might be. But if you don't know what I want other people to know me for, or when I'm not in the room, what are they talking about? How are they referring to me when they're talking to me or they're talking about me? What are the words that they're using? What are 3 words they're using? Get clear on the words right now that you want other people to describe you
Wow.
as when you're not in the room, because that will define your brand even when you're not aware or you're not directly promoting it, because that's the energy you bring. So that's the
Yeah,
first
no,
thing.
that's
There are other
beautiful.
things, but
Yeah, I
yeah.
love that. Where I want to move this into now is like one of the things that I'm excited about why I was like, please come on the show because I always like to offer my listeners tools and tips and insight, inspiration,
Mhm.
motivation, all of those things. However, you created this awesome LinkedIn course. And I just want you to talk to me a little bit about why did you create this course? What lesson did you learn that propelled you into this new course that you created?
I would say the main lesson that led me to actually work so hard on this was the idea that if you have to market a product, or actually you have to sell a product because you don't know how to market it, and you need to market it because you haven't built something good enough. So if you always have to
Mhm.
sell and sell and sell, you probably don't know how to market. If you always have to market and market, it's because the product isn't good enough. So the idea was, how can I make it so good where somebody feels the need to tell somebody else about it? And how good does it need to be to reach that point? Because if somebody feels like, oh, I've got to tell somebody else about this because it's so good, then every piece of effort that you put into it like compounds with the time. So the idea that excited me the most was, how can I make it so good that other people tell others about it? Everything started from there. And I knew
Wow.
in the beginning it wasn't good enough. I was like, all right, it's going to be hard. I've got to wait a few months here, probably more than a few months. I will have to say no to a lot of opportunities. I will have to say no to clients. I've said no to private clients because I was focusing solely on that. And so I left a lot on the table to create it. And it was because I wanted to create something that was good enough that could market itself. Of course, it needs marketing in the beginning so that you can get
Of
that
course.
compounding effect. But once you have 100, 200, 300 people, if it's not expanding on its own, that's probably still a good sign that it's not good enough. Because people are like, oh, but I'm not getting clients. People haven't found out about me, but they have found out about you, but they haven't told somebody else about it. Why? And you've got to attack that question sometimes, I feel. Yeah.
I mean, that's really profound if you think about it, because I think so many entrepreneurs, when something's not working, don't stop to ask the why, right?
Yeah.
They go on to making a new product or a new offer or something like
Mhm.
that. So I think that's just a really important moment in this episode, too, for the listeners to hear is that if you have a signature service or product or something like that, and it's not getting the recommendations and almost that guerrilla marketing, right? Word of mouth marketing, then instead of
Mhm.
maybe creating a different product, which might end up being the end result, maybe you need to question why it's not that way.
100%. And I feel like not to question just why, but also be actively talking with people. I feel like one of the things that I did after the first version is talking to people. Where do you feel like you could improve? You've got to get that feedback. I feel like sometimes to improve, you need that feedback. And sometimes entrepreneurs subconsciously avoid it because it hurts, but you've got to face it. You're not going to like it, but you've got to take it. And a question that you can ask yourself, if it was impossible to hurt my feelings, what would you tell me? Okay, just tell it. And yeah, you're going to get some good feedback that can hurt in the beginning, but it will help you a lot in the future. Because some people are not going to tell you exactly what it is sometimes, but you've got to make them comfortable with it. It's the feedback, it's probably another hard thing that you will have to take.
That's really good. Well, tell the audience a little bit about this course you created and how it might benefit them.
It's going to benefit you if you want to craft content that inspires people to message you, because I feel like to do that, you need to understand a lot of things about, number one, your audience, but also what are going to be specific things you need to demonstrate to be true in the content for them to actually make the decision to get in touch. I feel like the most important question in marketing is what must you demonstrate to be true for people to want to do business with you? So please stop and think about that question for a moment, because if you find the answer to that question for your own business and who you help, your content is going to get better just basically just on that. If you find the answer to that question, your content is going to get better by itself. Just find out the answer. What must you demonstrate to be true? And make a list of those things. And you're going to start approaching content differently, because now you're like, you know what? I've got to demonstrate this to be true. Let's reverse engineer what facts and things I need to talk about. What are some things I need to say and how do I need to say them? To inspire action, to have people go, I need to find out more about this. I need to learn more here. And that's what I teach in the course, basically. I go in depth in terms of the feelings, emotions you need to trigger for people to want to buy from you.
I love that. And I think it's so helpful too, especially with LinkedIn being a professional network. I feel that whether I'm looking at things through my thought leadership lens or I'm looking at things through my corporate lens, I see that people struggle most with what to say and how to say it.
It's very common because they don't know the answer to that question, because they're thinking,
Yes, that's why I
here's the
was
good
like, this is so good.
Yeah, because most people are like, all right, what is a good content idea? That's how they start content creation. What is a good content idea that I can post about? And that's not going to get you far. Instead of what emotion do I need to trigger here? What feeling? What thought process? What internal dialogue do I need to initiate in the prospect's mind to move them closer to where I want them to be in terms of decision making and beliefs? Because let's say you help somebody to lose weight. And let's say that you want to
Sure.
demonstrate the following to be true, that you can lose weight, or maybe let's say you're a public speaker, probably that one is going to make more sense. Let's say that you want to demonstrate that you can become a public speaker even if you have never delivered a speech before. That's the thing you want to demonstrate to be true. What do you need to say to demonstrate that to be true? What do you need to say? First, you need to demonstrate. We can actually get into that.
I was just going to say, like, you need to be able to demonstrate that you can clearly articulate your message, that there is a concept that you're going to take them on a journey from A to B. You're going to need to make sure that there's audience engagement so that you're not losing them in the process. There's so many things that go into it. But yeah, if you don't have
You got
the
it.
end in mind, what's the point?
You got it. And now you know how to approach that piece of content because you know exactly what you're going to say now. You need to have this and this, and that's why you can do it. And once you have these things, it's going to be much
That's
easier.
I love that you brought the audience because I always love real life examples and things like that. And us just
Yeah.
doing that little role play is
You
really
can
great because listeners, you can apply that formula to your own self.
choose one
Hmm.
thing around the thing that you want, you help people with, write that sentence, and then reverse engineer what you need to say to demonstrate that to be true. Practice that and you're going to become great.
That's so awesome. That makes me want to move to the next question. You've been in this expertise for 4 years now, and we've kind of touched on it a little bit, but I would love for you to share, why are you so passionate about what you do?
I would say that I got hooked into this when I first got my first client success. I think that got me to be like, oh, I love this. And I remember the first time, it was like 6 years ago when I got my first client success, and it was around sales because I started my consulting business and I was coaching people around sales because that was my background. And I remember this client reaching out to me like a few weeks later and was like, Johnny, I just got 3 clients today and I'm starting to talk to people in a more effective way. We'll talk about that success. And I was like, I got hooked there because I didn't know in the beginning, my friend, whether I was going to do consulting, whether I wanted to do it. I think if that success didn't happen, I would be doing something else today. I really think so.
Yeah.
Because in the beginning, I was really jumping from one thing to another. The self-esteem wasn't there, but also the uncertainty, the pressure from family. So I was jumping from one thing to another. And then I got into consulting and that success happened. I was like, all right, I like this. There's that one-on-one relationship. I like the success. When I get that success from that client, I really love it. So the passion is teaching one thing that I really like, psychology and marketing psychology, and also seeing the reward when somebody applies what I teach and gets in the benefit. That's, I think, where the process that I love. Teaching something that I love, and then when somebody gets results with it, that's the passion, I will say. So it's that thing.
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain
And
it, but
I love that about you too, because I follow you on LinkedIn, like I was sharing, and I see that you celebrate your own wins, that your client wins. So
yeah,
I love that you answered that as your passion, because I can feel your genuineness when you're sharing
thank you.
online.
Thank you. Yeah,
Hmm.
I share a lot of successes. Even though people are like, dude, you should share less of them. You're sharing too many. I'm like, okay, I will share more. I will share more.
So I do want to ask a side question,
Mm,
because you've mentioned it maybe 2 or 3 times so far. I
mm,
love exploring concepts that are challenging to people. This is the Empowered
mm,
Half Hour, so it's about offering motivation, inspiration,
mm,
transformation, whatever.
yeah,
And you'd mentioned uncertainty, and uncertainty stops people in their tracks.
yeah.
What can you share about uncertainty that might empower one of our listeners?
Enjoy it. Love it. When I look back now, I wish I would have enjoyed it more. Going back into those uncertain times, even though it's uncomfortable, you might not like it. It's a story you will tell one day. So when you're going to tell that story, make sure that you look back and you actually feel like, you know what? I didn't like it. I wanted to quit. I kept going and I actually freaking crushed it. And I didn't like, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the struggle. There isn't much you can do about it because I feel like you're going to grow. There is no way you're not going to grow if you go through a certain time so you don't quit. How are you not going to grow? It's very
Yes.
tough. And I feel
Love
like
that
the
you
belief.
said like freaking crush it too. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I was just like,
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
that. It builds your character when you go into your uncertainty.
It does build it. That's the thing I feel that has done it for me, the rejection and the uncertainty and not making it an option. It's incredible what somebody can do, Becca, when they burn the bridge and they're like, there is no other
Hmm.
road. That's the road. Uncertainty won't matter much. If you make it the only option, nothing matters anyways. So you might at least enjoy it.
That speaks to my heart and soul so much, because I feel too in my own journey, it is taking the path of uncertainty where I have found what I'm made of. And it
Mm.
is in that finding what I'm made of that I feel that's what I get to share with people now, is to inspire that in themselves. So that's why I was like geeking out for a minute. I'm like, okay, he said uncertainty like 2 or 3 times. I just want to talk about it before we end this interview.
Yeah, you made me aware of that. Yeah, I said it a couple of times. I would say
Yeah.
in the beginning for me was very uncertain because I went into debt twice when I started my business. I borrowed money from my family. I went to work in construction in the beginning, like 6 years and a half ago. I remember I went to work in construction for 7 months to make the money.
Mhm.
I went to buy a program and then I lost it all on ads. So I worked
Oh,
seven
wow.
months every day and then I lost it in 1 week and a half. Forget about the uncertainty, the hopelessness in that
Yes.
moment where I had a
Mhm.
secure job, I no longer have one. I started a business, it's not going anywhere. People think I'm a failure. Now I went to sacrifice 7 months. I worked so hard there. I lost it all
Wow.
in 1 week and a half. What do I do now? You wake up and keep going because that's the only option you got. If you have other options, you're going to find a way to justify quitting. Yeah, I think you've got to go through that to start shaping that character and developing into the person you need to be. So don't be mad at these times if you're uncertain or if you're going through that. And I'm talking about the people, of course, watching. Just be present, enjoy it, because again, it's going to be a story you're going to tell one day and it's got to be good. So if it's not interesting, if it's all good, right? If the story it's all success,
Yes.
it's
And
boring.
that doesn't really exist too. That's why I love talking about what we have to overcome to be the version of ourselves that we are
Yeah.
today, because there is no perfect story out there, but people
Yeah.
hold themselves back in the illusion that there
Yeah.
is. And so I love all the aspects of our conversation today. Thank
Oh,
you so much for coming on the Empowered Half Hour. And I would love for you to share, how can people follow you, inquire about coaching, your courses? I have a lot of LinkedIn folks on here, so let's keep you connected to them.
follow me on LinkedIn, I will say, because I will start really dominating the platform right now because I've spent the last 9 months just building products and I haven't been focusing on content. So now I'm going to take content seriously. So watch how I'm going to play the game, because I feel like for you,
Awesome.
for me, in my case, to teach how to crush it, I've got to practice it and you've got to see me play the game. So I feel like follow me on LinkedIn. So that's what I will say.
Yes, go follow him. Everything's in the show notes too, but what's your profile on LinkedIn?
It's my name, Johnny, which is written in a very strange way. It's Xhoni. So Johnny.
Well, that concludes our interview. I am so grateful that you came on the show and got to educate our listeners and share your wonderful stories. They were so inspiring. Thanks again, Johnny, for coming on the Empowered Half Hour.
Thank you so much, my friend. I love the podcast and I wouldn't be surprised if he crushes it in the next few months.
Ah, you're speaking my language. This is awesome. All
Thank you. Oh,
right,
that's
I'll see
great.
you.